hopelessly connected to Drew.
This is Ridiculously Happy Ppl. I'm Sophia Lemon, a photographer and professional shit disturber, and I believe that happiness is rebellion. In each episode, my guests and I share stories of breaking free from the rules that keep us from it. In this episode, I'm talking with leadership expert and best-selling author Drew Dudley about self-forgiveness, self-compassion, redefining happiness and strength, as well as anger, fear, and empathy. If you love real conversations and deep connections, hit that subscribe button and keep listening. Drew, what makes you ridiculously happy?
I'm so glad that I got a chance to reflect on this again. So in no particular order, I was saying, I think I said to you before we came on, when I was 30 or 33 or 35, it was some birthday, I actually sat down and just made a list of things that make me ridiculously happy. And I don't think I'd thought about it for 15 years. So just random things have been popping into my head. And I'll start with this. It makes me ridiculously happy to be fuzzy. And what I mean by that is I haven't spoken in about 8 or 9 days, and I haven't shaved in that time. And I haven't worn this fedora in quite a while. You probably haven't seen me in this in quite a while. This used to be my thing. But, I also haven't like really had my hair cut. So there's a real fuzz going on here. And so I really like this because it means that I've actually had a little time to be home and nest, because I can't look like this when I travel and I speak. So I'll say being fuzzy makes me ridiculously happy. When pizza actually comes with double cheese, like you order extra cheese and you can't tell, but then you have one and it's a ½ inch and it has a satisfying thunk. When you bite into the slice of pizza, I want a thunk of thick mozzarella. That makes me ridiculously happy. When Bob Marley goes into everything is going to be all right in the song No Woman, No Cry, that makes me so ridiculously happy. Cigars on a dock or in a canoe with my buddy, that makes me ridiculously happy. Holding hands in cool places makes me ridiculously happy. Everything Aaron Sorkin has ever written, particularly anything involving poker, and there's a scene called Show Money Tonight in Sports Night, which is one of his writings, and there's a poker game in the West Wing, and it makes me ridiculously happy. And I could keep rolling. I'm just trying to remember what was on that list. And it was everything from not just food, but when food was done right, to the way people the way songs made me feel. I like the way the sun looks from the bottom of a pool when you go underwater and you open your eyes. I think that's really, really cool. It makes me ridiculously happy. Actually, it makes me almost more awe-filled, but when you're in awe, it's maybe not happy, but it's an openness and acceptance when I walk through redwood groves. I did that recently out in California, and it's so silent. There's not even birds, and these trees that have been around. It made me remember that someone told me that sharks are older than trees, which really annoyed me. It did. It makes me ridiculously happy to play MLB The Show with my buddy Adam, almost every night. It's our way of bonding again. There's this big long list, and none of them are huge, but I look. You know what makes me ridiculously happy, as goofball as this is? I have a coffee thermos that I love so much. I have driven away and left this thing bouncing down the highway, and I have turned around on the highway to go and find this thermos mug, because my coffee is hot 7 hours after. And here's the thing: if anyone out there is listening who has ADHD, that you pour your coffee and then 7 hours later are oh yeah, I made a coffee, and this thermos mug keeps it hot. And to be able to just look around and find out these little things that, if you actually sit back and think about, when you're just content, sunsets on a dock for me, when the lake is absolutely glass, and you're in a kayak and you're cutting through it, and it's just if you look at the horizon, it's almost as if a mirror is is reflecting, the trees and everything on the other side. And like, there's all of these things that make me ridiculously happy that for a long time, I got into this mood. And I think that, politics of the social world did it before I quit watching the news, that I was always angry. And then finally, I kind of got annoyed that I was letting other people make me angry because they were trying to, and sort of pulled away from everything in the world except the people close to me. And so I don't really go on social media. I was looking for an old post, like that I did, but other than that, and it's immediate. I go on social media. I download Instagram to try to send somebody a DM, and like all of a sudden I'm in the shorts just getting pissed. And that's why they're there, right? It's to distract us, and people I don't know and who I never will probably meet were just making me grumpy. And once I took them out of my life, and all you really have to do instead of getting distracted by stuff that's not around you is that you just start to notice these little things that when you get a shopping cart and the wheels are like almost new. You know how rare that is to like push a shopping cart and it like rolls so well that it almost rolls away from you?
Yeah.
Like, God, that makes me happy. I think on my list years ago, I wrote when Blockbuster has the new release you want. And it was funny. I remember that. And I was just like, do you remember that feeling? Like, that was, I love it. I think my buddy Neil Pasricha taught me this. It makes me ridiculously happy when you hit the elevator button and the door opens immediately. That's how it's done. It makes me ridiculously happy if the hotel has a good iron. You know what I mean? God, I love it when it's a good iron. I love it when you walk into a mall or something that just doesn't happen anymore, like a mall or a store in the summer, and the sliding doors open and you get the way too high air conditioner blast. And it's the most like, and if you have just the right amount of sweat, you almost just want to like, but it's like a scratch, right? Like you scratch it and it feels so good until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this sucks. I know that I've been going on now, but I'm actually just really, oh my God, the Tragically Hips singing Grace 2. Like that makes me incredibly happy. Bob Dylan and his line, but for the sky there are no fences facing. That makes me ridiculously happy. It's just, oh my God, The Princess Bride, specifically like the sword fight scene, and never mess with a Sicilian when there's death on the line. And I mean, you could turn around the TV. Television is something, kids, that we used to not be in charge of what we got to watch. We just had to hope something we liked was on. And sorry, I completely forgot where I was going with it. But yeah, it's been really cool to just be reminded of just thinking of that list thanks to you, and trying to remember all these things, and remembering there was like 35 or 40. And I think there's way more now, but there's also these ones that like make me like really truly happy. A smoke on the dock, like at the cottage at the end of the day as the sun goes down, whatever you choose to smoke. I do love a great cigar. And oh, man, I think I'm is it okay if just like throughout the entire podcast I randomly stop and point out another one?
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty much what the show is. Okay. You just threw a lot at me.
oh, my PS5. I love my PS5. I love my PS5 so much. The sound that a PS5 or an Xbox makes when it boots up. Yeah. And it's designed for that, right? Like it's instant dopamine release, but oh man, it works. It works great. And when the cat immediately comes over to you, and we don't have to do this song and dance of like, am I going to get to pet you or not? Like it just comes right out. When the cat arrives purring, makes me ridiculously happy. Like when it just it's coming up to you and it already knows that you're the best. Like they took one look at my midsection and go, oh yeah, that's going to be comfy as hell. It's like they just arrive laughing. When a friend of mine gives me their book, makes me ridiculously happy. It's like, oh my gosh, when you sit in a triple row on a plane in economy and no one else sits in your row. I almost swore that excites me so much. I freaking love it. Makes me so happy when someone like rips by you at like 160 and then you come around the corner and they're pulled over. Like there's some Schadenfreude there, I know, but like how freaking happy is that? And when bros pick on people that are quiet and it turns out that they have a black belt.
Yeah,
that makes me ridiculously happy as well. So redheads as a general rule. Well, half of them. The other half are all the evil that we're told, but that just makes them fascinating.
Can we just put this to rest then? For me, am I one of the evil ones, or do I possess a soul, Drew?
See, I've never said that redheads don't possess a soul. I think what happens is from a very early age, they're told that you don't have a soul, and they go one of two ways, attempting to convince the world that they do, for instance, by running a podcast based on ridiculously happy things, for instance, or they simply get broken by the constant teasing and become supervillains. And the only thing you have to do to avoid a redheaded supervillain is just run out into an open field in the summer. It's like they're like kind of like vampires that way. They'll come out into the sun, but then you can see them become frustrated and quickly retreat to the shade. So
okay, so I'm not one of the evil ones, is what you're saying.
No, you literally have a podcast called Ridiculously Happy Ppl, and you have dedicated your life to capturing beautiful moments. So if you're evil, I'm assuming it's so that you can lock an entire wedding into a barn and burn it down at some point. But it would appear to me you're playing the long game. Although I'm sure in your job there have been clients that have made you want to lock them into a barn and burn it down. But
maybe not.
Don't lie and be like, no, it's all good. No, it's not.
I feel like I'm one of those people who, that sort of retribution wouldn't work for me, because I would really want them to like realize what they did wrong, and acknowledge it.
Fair enough. The song Murdergram Part 2 by Eminem and LL Cool J makes me ridiculously happy.
I've been working out, and I've been listening to the Big Booty mixes because they're awesome for working out. So maybe
I'm not familiar with the Big Booty mixes.
I think it's these two guys who just like take a whole bunch of songs and they'll stick them all together with like sounds from like TV shows, like and stuff like that.
Like
so
88 joy. You put the headphones on and you're like, thank God there's 19 things going on at once.
It's like, yeah.
DJ Flapjack.
It's totally like ADHD music to the max, but they're about an hour long, so it's great for working out. But there's so much Eminem. And then I'm always like loving the Eminem, but then I'm like, he's saying such horrible things. Anyway, I sometimes forget how ADHD you are. I'm also in this moment realizing how much in the moment you manage to be, despite the fact that you are incredibly ADHD.
Yeah, I think part of it too is a relative lack of sleep, and which generally either makes you miserable or really happy. And I forget what the other. Oh yeah, I forgot to take everyone listening. I forgot to take the meds this morning, and I'm funnier and more creative when I haven't taken them, but I speak a lot slower and am far more coherent. So my guess actually is that as this podcast goes on, everyone listening and watching is going to see the effects of ADHD drugs slowly take over. And at the end, I'll probably be like, well, thank you so much, Sophia. It's really been a pleasure being here, sharing ideas with you.
Curious.
I'm actually feeling it right now, like it taking over and me becoming.
I can see it happening. Do you take them when you're speaking?
What's really interesting is the ADHD stuff. Like, I don't even know if I have ADHD, but I have very bad ADHD symptoms, and they keep getting worse. And it started with the last bout of COVID. I don't know if they're related, but you've always known me. I've been frenetic. I'm bipolar too. So there have been times where it's been rare in the last 10, 12 years, but where I get hypomanic and fired up. It's one of the insidious things about mental illness is that when things start going really good, you wonder if it's a symptom, if that makes any sense. So not even if things are going good, if you're feeling good.
Yeah.
Like I feel really upbeat and stronger for the first time since the pandemic. I think it really took me a lot longer than I thought, and Dad died, and I don't think I processed that necessarily. And all of a sudden in the last, few months, I feel as the summer has hit, like I'm not just coming out of a winter, but from like a 5-year winter. And where it was really, really tough and I wasn't at my best, and I put on, 50 pounds or 60 pounds and really like had trouble getting out of bed some days. And now there's this like new energy to it, but also this fog that came in. I did a red dot talk for trademark reasons. I can't call it the 3 letters, but it was my first one in about 10 years. And I talked about how different my mind worked now. And the way I try to explain it is, if you've ever moved from an Apple to an Android, like from iOS to Android or Google, it's like really infuriating for a while. Really infuriating, because things that used to happen with muscle memory and intellectual memory, intellectual muscle memory too, they're just a little different. And it's really frustrating. And that's what happened when my brain started like going slower. And I think right now there's no doubt in terms of intellectual agility, I'm not as quick as I used to be, but I'm smarter in that, because it takes me longer to get to a thought. It used to just jump there. And I thought that I could either listen and be intelligent or talk and seem quick. And because everybody's a little bit, I think, self-conscious about how intelligent they are, if you do have the gift of being quick or charming or whatever people want to call it, you tend to lean on that because that you're being quick and trying to be funny. But if you have to listen and actually respond to things, it's different. And so what's happened is, because it takes me longer to get to an idea, I actually see a lot more of the nuance along the way. And I'll be honest with you, what it's really done is make me woke as hell. Sorry, anyone who gets annoyed at that. Because for me, what I've decided to define woke as is becoming aware that of how you've hurt people accidentally and trying to change it. And that's it. Like, that's all it means to me is being open to becoming aware of things you've done that hurt people that you didn't mean to do, and then being willing to not do it again. It doesn't mean you're bad for having done it before. It just means that you do it again or don't do it again. And it's things like for instance, my girlfriend, God bless her, makes me so much a better person. But I drove home one night on a country road up to my house, and I was following this car, and there's nothing except this little resort that I was living at in the winter. So there was only a few people there. And so I was following this car up this mountain road at night. And so we were both going to the same place because the last exit, what we had passed. And all of a sudden, have you ever looked down and realized you're beaming someone? Like, you've got your high beams on, right?
Okay.
And like, I hate that, but it's like, it's non-intentional most of the time.
Yeah.
But you feel like a dick. And so I was like, oh man, this has been like 15 minutes on a winding road. What a jerk I am. So what I'll do is, when this person pulls into the parking lot, I'll pull in next to them and just apologize. And see, you get it, don't you? See,
yes.
Tell me why you're laughing.
That'd be scary. Being followed.
Yeah, but it never occurred to me that the young woman in the car was terrified.
Yeah.
Because I got out and I started walking over, and she had the window up and she was on her phone.
Oh.
And I did the roll down move, which God knows if you're born after 1990, like, you have no idea what the hell this means. Or it's like this. What is that? But what happened is I walked up and she's like, oh, it's okay. And I went back and I told my girlfriend on the phone that night, I was so proud of being a good guy. And she's like, you scared the hell out of her.
Yeah.
But see, that's when I realized there's just these blind spots.
Yeah.
Right. And then so as my brain has slowed down, it started to notice things like, wow, when the cleaning lady comes to my apartment, like she's 5'1" and I'm 260 pounds, and I close the door behind her. Now she's alone in an apartment with a big guy. And like, I try to, I squeeze by or something, and I don't even think about it. And now like my brain's gone a little slower. And this is just one example, like in this particular case is, for instance, the impact I have on, like the impact that I have on women, and it's not my fault and they're not out of line, but they don't know who I am. And, I'm a big stranger. And I just never really thought of how just moving through the world could be threatening to someone. And it's been so interesting, because if it's like my brain stopped and said, okay, well, why don't you go up, move over here about 2 feet, and now look at all of the knowledge that you have in the world from a slightly different angle. And what's interesting is if you look at all of your knowledge from a slightly different angle, you immediately double your knowledge. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing everything slightly differently. I'm seeing like how I impact people in the world more than I used to. And especially when you're bipolar and manic, we sometimes miss a lot of social cues. For instance, we have trouble not like stopping talking because we want some natural like conclusion to the sentence, and we can never figure out the perfect closer, and we keep going till we find it. But that's what's really happened. And as a result, these ADHD symptoms, the biggest thing is that I can't start things. And this thing called executive function, are you familiar with executive function? The concept of executive function, or what it means? I didn't.
No.
I had no idea.
No, tell me.
Well, I guess executive function, like to put this crudely, is the part of your brain, or the ability of your brain to start something, to take step 1 of anything.
Okay.
Because you could be the best in the world at step 2 through step 4,000 something, but if you can't take step 1, you're crippled. And this is what the biggest symptom that made me go and see what was going on is not so much the scatterbrainness or the forgetting things or the leaving water all around the, bottles of water. Every ADHDer's got like 7 of them half filled around their apartment. But it was not being able to start things. To be sitting in front of a laptop with an incredibly important email to send, literally with your fingers on the keyboard. And I couldn't start. It's gotten so bad that like basic biological stuff, not to like, I forget to eat like for a day and a half at a time. And honest to God, this is how bad executive function can get, is like you don't go to the bathroom until it's an emergency. Like I have to, I'm sorry if this is like off, but like I want people to just understand that it's not just this thing that you learned as like it's young kids bouncing off the walls and not paying attention. It's like a crippling inability to start what you're great at. And the thing is, once you start it, you are locked in. Like I can work 11 hours straight once I get locked in, but I couldn't. And what the meds did is allow me to do one thing at a time, because what my brain tries to do is mentally do everything at once. And then you get overwhelmed and you just sit on the bed. And the best way I can describe it is that a lot of ADHDers, especially those of us who suffer, and I'm getting worse with the executive function, we come off as lazy. And just so you know, here's the difference. Lazy people, when they're not doing anything, don't care. ADHD people, when they're not doing something, are torturing themselves. Like, yes, I'm sitting there and like staring off, but all my brain is doing is that email, that project. And so what happened, I found, is that finally the meds don't quite get past that start thing, but they're amazing once I do. And also it allows me to be quieter, because I can actually, like, one of the things that was really frustrating when it got bad was that here's like happiness. If you can't focus on something, you can't appreciate it. And if you can't appreciate things in this world, like you don't have any gratitude. And so all of a sudden I realized I had become very miserable because I couldn't focus on anything long enough to appreciate it and therefore be grateful that it was in my life. I was trying to pay attention to 19 things at once. And that was the nicest thing when I was diagnosed, is not, because it basically, people are like, oh, like that must have been upsetting. Or people call me when they're diagnosed as bipolar and they feel terrible and scared, obviously. But then the thing is, now you know what you're fighting. And I can go online and learn things about executive function and different types of ADHD and things like we hate the big light. Like ADHDers, if you go in the room and flip on that big light in the middle of the room, hells no. Like I need like those Edison light bulbs, soft yellow.
Yeah.
You turn on that fluorescent 45-watt bulb at the top, like I can't deal with the room. So
I'm big on candles myself.
What's that?
I'm big on candles myself.
Oh, they only get you to fall in love with the scented candles, right? But your ADHD, I forget to blow them out. I've spent $2,000 on really good Bose headphones this year because I leave them in the back of plane seats. And I left my U.S. work visa and passport in the back of a plane seat, or I thought anyway. Then I got a new one and went through all that stress and paid like, $6,000, and then you find it, or the cleaning people find it. Yeah. Oops.
Okay, so I am kind of blown away because I feel like all of your work is all about like being so focused on, the parts of you that make you ridiculously happy, basically, from what I've observed.
I was incredibly depressed for a long time. And so I'm trying to get over my worry that the fact I feel good is a symptom and means that something's going on, because I want to feel good. But then when you're bipolar, you got to watch at how good, right? Yeah. But I felt so bad for so long. Like, Sophia, if you'd done this with me 6 months ago, like I am in the best place I can remember being since 2017. Before Anastasia, my girlfriend, passed. Like that was that time in your life when you've got all three. You've got your work life going well, your relationships going well, and your physical health going well, like the magic tripod. And it's been a long time. And, there's things I want to return to great health. But not only do I feel better, but I'm doing a better job celebrating that. And I'm trying to save up things on these good days for the bad days, right? Because we get spiraling on bad days. And I talk about this in one of my presentations, is like just plant seeds on your good days that you can harvest happiness on your bad days. So my friend told me that when she was in rehab, because I had been bitching about my life. And then I looked up, I'm like, wait, I'm literally at a rehab facility, like complaining about my life. Yeah. And like, you're a jerk. And and she just said, I get it, man. Like there's days where you don't feel good, but on the days you feel terrible or you do feel good, don't just live in the moment. Like you do want to enjoy it, but what we do is on our good days, we want to just push out the bad and look, we can escape it for now. But what she said was like, recognize in the good moments, if you could take like 5 seconds to do, or 5 minutes to do something for pissed off you in the future. And, that's why I put photographs of all my travels as the backgrounds of my PowerPoint slides, because every day when I'm at work, I'm reminded how remarkable my life is. Like I'm so lucky, because Sophia, if you were not born in China and you have stood on the Great Wall of China, like you have had a more remarkable life than most of the people to ever live. Like it was such a weird moment for me to stand on the Great Wall of China and just be like, how fortunate are you? You weren't born in China and you were standing on this remarkable place. And that's like, that means I've been fortunate physically. I've been fortunate where I was born. I was fortunate in terms of my freedom, in terms of my money, in terms of my health and my support. And like, it's it's hard when you've been through, like, it's easier when you've been through crap, I think, to be happier in the good moments. And like the phrase, like, what good can come of this has really helped. And the other thing that's made me happier, and this is kind of weird, but the question, what are they afraid of? Mm-hmm. Because I found that when people get angry, and I used to get, I have a hair trigger. I think I got it from my mom, or PTSD as well, right? Mm-hmm. But I can blow up, and as I get older, especially since the trauma stuff, like I get angrier than I want to. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that did it is that people would act in ways that I felt were disrespectful, or like whatever it is, like parking in a handicapped spot drives me bananas, or leaving your shopping cart in the middle of the aisle, or letting your dog sniff people's crotches with, these are just things that I find inconsiderate. And I used to get really mad. And then when people would sort of get like tense or uptight, I started to ask, like, okay, what are they afraid of? Because I think every dysfunction on the planet is driven by fear, right? Mm-hmm. Someone's afraid they're going to lose something, money or their job or respect or influence, or somebody's convinced they're going to be given something they don't want or they're not ready for. And, when you get afraid, even if you don't know you're afraid, or even if you don't understand what's driving you and you don't realize it's fear, is that your behavior becomes very self-centered, because fear makes you when you're afraid, you become concerned with protecting yourself. And to be afraid and hurt or in pain or wanting to protect yourself makes you incredibly self-centered in that moment. Mm-hmm. Not like as a person, as a character, but like that's how our brain works. It's like all that matters is me right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think what happens is that people start to have these behaviors and they don't know that it's driven by the fact that they're afraid. And if you can figure out, if you take a minute to step back and say, what are they afraid of? And then ask, like, how am I contributing to that? Because if it's you contributing to what they're afraid of, you can change your behavior. If it's not you, then it's not about you, right? And then you can be helpful and make this person feel better. And by that, I mean, if you find a way to make him or her feel, or them feel less afraid. And I said to a bunch of managers last week is that strip everything else out of your leadership handbook. If your main mission when you interact with people, particularly those upset, is to make them less afraid of something, then you will always be liked and respected as a leader. Like, that's our thing. And it just, what happens is if you can help people like they're afraid of something, and you can deal with the problem at the level of the fear instead of the behavior that emerges from it. Mm-hmm. And so my old boss, we had a real lousy relationship when I first started. And like, I can be a handful, right? I'm a terrible employee. That's why I work for myself. But, we butted heads. And I finally, I think it was Wei-Sin Choi, the author, he passed away a couple of years ago, who said something about, when I started figuring out what people were afraid of, I was able to better provide love in the world, or something to that effect. And I started like thinking, what is she afraid of? And I realized, like, what if she thinks I want her job and I don't want her job? Like, yes, I'm a big personality and obviously I'm ambitious, but I didn't want her job. It was a no job. Those jobs where you always have to say no. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do that. And so finally we had a meeting, and I just was like, honestly, I just want you to know, like, my long-term plan does not include holding the position you do. Like, I'd like to go this direction if I'm going to move up. And it changed entirely our dynamic. Mm-hmm. And see, I didn't say, are you afraid of me taking your job? Because people get their back up because fear is seen as weakness, right? Mm-hmm. And as a protective measure, we don't want to seem afraid. But when you just figure out what they're afraid of, and then you can say something that kind of alleviates one of their worries, and you can alleviate the fear without letting on that you knew what it was. And sometimes they don't realize what it was, right? Like, just even things like, hey, you know what? I'm going to let you know that there are absolutely no layoffs on the way in the next 3 weeks. And everybody who is afraid to ask, is my job in danger? Like, you knew they were afraid. And instead of giving explanations or excuses, just deal with the fear. Like, I don't want to go back to work. I hate back to work. Like, why are we going back to the office? Instead of being like, why are people selfish or why are people being forced back? Like, what were people afraid of in going back to the office? What were they afraid of? Were they afraid of like not knowing how to socialize with people? Were they afraid of having to give up a life that had made their family dynamic better? But they might not even know. They just don't want to go back to the office. But if you start asking, what are they afraid of? Oh, it's the family dynamics thing. Okay, what could we as a business do to make them less afraid of this thing we're asking? Like, the first thing when you roll something out new that is to think to yourself, how is this going to scare people? And not like, ooh, booga booga, but like sort of in a, like, oh my God, how is this going to affect my life? You know what I mean? So that to me is like, when you start identifying fear, you can help add to happiness. I used to say, if you drive to work every morning and you don't have the photograph of someone you love hanging from your rearview mirror, you're missing an opportunity to smile once every day for a moment of happiness. And I put that in a speech the first time I was ever going to say it. It was a speech on self-respect and like how to cultivate happiness, for instance. And I wrote that, and I got in the car with the Uber to go to the event. And sure enough, the woman had a photograph of her daughter right up on the vent next to the wheel. And I said, oh my God, I'm about to say to people, do that because it creates one moment of happiness every day, at least. And she looked back over her shoulder and was like, you don't have kids, do you? And I was like, no. And she goes, look, what did she say? She goes, when I look at her, I don't always feel happiness. But when I look at her, I'm always reminded that I'm connected to something bigger. And that gives me strength. And I need strength more than I need happiness. And happiness isn't possible without strength. And all of a sudden, this idea of happiness being like, is it a destination? Is it a moment? But it's strength that actually gets used more often in life, because strength is needed when things are happy, when things are sad, when things are planned, and when they're not. And I just thought, amazing. She didn't put it up there because it made her feel this moment of love. She did it because it gave her strength. And that to me is something like, there's a difference. Like, when is it happiness and when is it strength? Like, when are you happy and when are you proud? Because someone told me once that mad isn't an emotion. Mad is a combination of emotions.
Oh,
and so I wonder.
I have thoughts about anger.
So what do you think?
Okay, well, anger, for example, I think the only real practical purpose of anger is to protect ourselves from something that we are afraid of, right? Okay. Certainly when we're yelling or getting physical with someone, like, there's really no reason for that unless we are being physically threatened.
Hopefully.
That's kind of how I've been thinking about.
Or you're Andrew Tate.
Oh, jeez. That's how I've been thinking about anger lately.
I'm sorry, I mentioned that on a happy podcast. Sorry, let's no, cancel.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about anger lately. That it comes out of us as anger when we are afraid of something that we need to protect ourselves from, despite the fact that, you know, most of us are not being chased by lions most of the time. Or in your case, sharks. You're welcome.
I did get in with them, though. I did get in with them.
You did.
Second time.
Happiness? Would it not be all of the things rolled into one? Like, you've already said that, you know, if you haven't had challenges in your life, you're probably less likely to feel happiness, right? I would agree with that. You know, people who have never had to work for something or never experienced suffering don't experience happiness in the same way. But you also have to have gratitude. Like, you have to have experienced sadness. I would imagine that happy people feel strength in some way in their lives. Well, in many ways. But strength can be anything. physical, emotional.
I wonder if is like happiness like like the color or the emotional version of the color white, where it's just a combination of like everything
Yeah.
together. It's gratitude and strength and self-confidence and
Mm-hmm.
feeling loved and that's what leads happiness. Like it's a fleeting thing. It's almost like it's a something you pass through.
Mm-hmm.
Like that redwood grove, which is like you can be content, but that sort of true happiness, like, let me ask you this. Is happiness energy or is happiness peace? And is it different for people?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think happiness is like moments or like a general overarching state of being, you know? Like if you ask the Dalai Lama if he's working on anything, he'll say yes, right? Like he will admit to not being a perfect person. He's not
Yeah.
happy all the time. Although I have to say, any of his stories about getting angry, he doesn't sound like he's that angry to me. But I mean, that's based on my own experience with angry people. But
When, what are you angry? Who are you angriest with the most?
me?
Like, I know this is a happiness podcast, but like we can lead to happiness afterwards. But like sometimes we don't take a step back in our lives and like look at the metadata because we're so close to it, right? We don't know who first discovered water, but we're pretty sure it wasn't a fish. And it's like when you watch a video of yourself speaking and all of a sudden you realize there are these things that are just you that you had no idea you did. For instance, the word like. I did not realize I used that so much. I wish I could put it up on the screen for you folks, but I recently made a photo, which was me at about 5 years old at my aunt's house. And I was leaning against a piano and I was doing this. And I was talking at 5. And then I found 12 photographs of me over the last 8 years on stage doing the exact same pose. And I put them together in a collage. Like sometimes this is just who we are. But like, I think happiness is just probably experienced differently the same way suffering is. Because we say if people have gone through suffering, they can't really get it. But I think a young woman taught me something really important once. I'd done a speech where I talked about my friends who had passed away because they'd all done so young. And I wanted to talk to these students about how, even though they'd all passed away before they were 24, here I am, 15, 20 years later, talking about them and their leadership lessons. And a young woman came up to me afterwards and said, I feel bad for the pain you've had in your life. And then she told me her story, and it was so much worse than mine. She was a refugee. She's seen her family killed in front of her. And at the end of it, I'm like, what are you talking? Your suffering dwarfs mine.
Yeah.
And she goes, there is no universal measuring unit for pain.
Yeah.
Hurt just hurts. And anything worse than what you're used to hurts. And she said, but I have to realize if I want to be the woman that I want to be, if I'm going to be the woman that I want to be, I've got to let go of the things that hurt me because only hurt people hurt others. And if I want to be that woman, I have to let it go, or I will carry my pain around with me and I will use it as a weapon against someone that I love. And she was 18.
Stop.
And I'm like, don't become a professional speaker because I'm done. Like, you'll be amazing. Because I remember word for word that little mantra, that little idea. Only hurt people hurt others. And if I don't let it go, I will carry my pain around and I will use it as a weapon against someone that I love. Who are you angry with? Like, if you really step back and meta look at your life, everybody out there, and you take a look at all of the anger that you feel in a given week or a month, where is it targeted? Is it targeted at people? Is it targeted at things? Is it targeted at behaviors? Like, before this moment, I've never thought of it. So I'm going to throw it to you so I can think about it. Like, if you had to break down a month of anger, what's it most commonly directed at?
I think the things that make me angry are when I think people are being inconsiderate, when I perceive what someone is doing as being inconsiderate, like in traffic. That seems like just the easiest one to point to at all times, traffic. Because you can't even see the person in the vehicle. Like, you see no facial expressions, you hear no tone of voice, there's no body language, you just see a car, and that car is being an asshole. But I think that the people, I think about this reasonably frequently. Like, I feel very, very lucky to be a person who doesn't hold on to things too much. Like, I don't really regret my behavior throughout the years, for example, or I don't really hold a grudge. But the people that I do hold a grudge against, or, you know, that I would say that I'm still angry with, are the people who I think I will never get an apology from for their behavior, which in some cases was like pretty bad. And it's like a lack of closure that I could for sure just let go on my own, but I don't. I get angry.
Don't you wish, like, I wish there was a forgiveness class. Like, I just think, and I guess that's why I asked the question, is that I took stock of that recently, and I realized, like, by far and away, the answer to what I get angriest at is me. Like, I'm
Okay.
like my buddy,
All right.
we were on a call, and he says, "Man, the language you use to talk about yourself is vicious," and that's a strong word, vicious.
Yeah.
And like, and part of it is like with ADHD or bipolar or whatever it is, like, you forget stuff. I lose another set of headphones, and honestly, the thing that's toughest now is the PTSD. Like, what that does is it can make you angry, irrationally. But one of the things I realize is that I'm usually beating myself up for making mistakes. Like, if I talk about most of my anger, it's at me, how I behaved, what I wish I'd said, why I'm angry. Like, I found that, like, it's not the emotions that get us; it's our judgments of ourselves for the emotions that we're having. You know, after Anastasia died, I'm like, oh my God, I'm laughing. It's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Judge. Why haven't I cried more? Judge. Okay, I should be getting through this. Judge. Like, these emotions over which we have no control, then we judge ourselves for them. And I think that one of the things, if you're out there, and happiness and forgiveness are tied so tightly together, and finding a way to forgive yourself is really tough for the past. But we can make a commitment to change the way we judge ourselves moving forward. And I think part of that is that start to recognize how much of the things we attribute to character are physiological. And the PTSD has really shown this to me, in that when, like, PTSD, for me, it's not getting angry. The phrase I started to use is dysregulated, which is like all of our emotions are carefully sort of regulated. They're in you know, our health, our mental health, our physical health. And when you get dysregulated, things are out of, and it's almost as if like you're in one of those, like a salad spinner, where when things start to spin around, everything's just banging, right? And nobody can focus, and you're pinned against the wall. And I think that's what it is. And I think one of the keys, if you're out there, is start realizing that some of the stuff you judge yourself for, you have zero control over. Like, getting afraid, like, that exists to keep us alive. Human beings, our primary threats used to be physical. Now they're social and emotional. But the last upgrade our brain got was 40,000 years ago. And so we still have brains wired for a physical threat world, where those of us who are lucky enough to live in the developed world, we now live in a social emotional threat world. And our brains are maladapted for it. And so when we get frustrated, when we get hangry, whatever this is that this is our body actually going haywire on us. And then we judge ourselves as if it's a character thing. And I forget stuff, or I miss stuff, and I beat myself up because I'm stupid. And then I'm like, my brain physically is different than other people's. And most of our anger is at us. And I really think that the anger we feel at ourselves is what stands in the way of most of our happiness. Because a really hard revelation for me, Sophia, and I think a lot of us do this, is that I pushed a lot of people in my life away because I felt so little about myself, that eventually everyone who got close to me, I became convinced that they were bad people for being friends with someone as bad as I was. And then to hate yourself so much that you judge the people who love you for their love, that's really hard. And I think that sometimes we allow our anger at ourselves and our hatred and our lack of forgiveness. Do you feel that you need an apology to let it go? And is letting it go different than forgiveness?
No, I don't need an apology to let it go. Like, intellectually, I understand that. And also, I have come to learn that probably the people who cannot apologize do struggle with that being able to forgive themselves thing. So they're just living so deeply in denial that they almost need to prove to themselves how terrible they are. And so they just keep on with whatever the behavior is. So I get that.
And if you think you're a bad person, so you do bad things to prove yourself right.
But usually, usually it's like a person you care about, right? So like I get angry because like I think like you could do so much better. Like, I know what you are capable of. You just want to slap them around, but yeah.
Well, the people you won't forgive, though, like you were obviously just thinking of a couple. Would you go to their funeral?
Yeah. There's one person on my mind right now.
And yet we don't talk to them.
Oh, I talk to them.
Okay, good. Because but you'd go to their funeral, and it's just like, there are people in my life that if I found out they were gone, I would go to their funeral, but I will not text them.
That's fair.
What the hell? Like, you know, you think so?
That seems reasonable to me because you have to protect yourself as well. So are these people who have upset you in one way or another? Maybe that's...
You know what, the thing, I don't think they've hurt me, really. That's the thing, is we had some sort of, disagreement or got pissed off at one another, but like there's very few people who have hurt me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's weird. I've let that go more than I have some of the more petty stuff, to be completely honest with you. Can you think of like the compliment that if someone walked up to you and gave it to you, you'd be like, yeah, like that is exactly what I want to be complimented on? What do you think it would be for you?
I think I'm gonna have to look this up. I think I got it the other day. This is a friend who, like, years ago, like, we would talk about stuff that was going on in our lives, and if she went on for too long about stuff that was not going well in her life, I would get very frustrated, like lose patience and everything. And the other day she was telling me about some stuff that was going on in her life. She said to me, "Thank you for being so open and candid." And something about me being empathetic.
But I don't know what the hell she was thinking when she called me empathetic.
Well, I mean, I think that I often give off the impression that I'm really hard on people and I don't necessarily care. But then it's like been dawning on me how much of a big softie I am. Like, I was talking to one of my guy friends the one day and I don't even know what I was talking about. And all of a sudden he goes, "You're just a big baby, aren't you? Like, you're just a big suck." I'm like, yes, I am.
What it might be too, Sophia, is like you might be a perfect example of what Mustafa, my guide in the desert from all those years ago, I talked to him. But he said, don't, and he was talking about employees specifically, but he said, don't show yourself to others. Let them discover you. And everything gets easier. And that was big for me because I'm very performative, right? For a long time, I thought it's my job to make sure there's no quiet. And Landis put it, "Why are you so petrified of silence?" And I am, and I was for a long time. I think it's because, you come from a home where silence means somebody's cooking and going to explode. Like, one thing I've discovered for all of you who are struggling to be happy is one of the things that's not our fault is that you will never clean up a bigger mess than the one that was left by your parents.
Yeah.
And some of you know what that mess is, and some of you are still searching for it, and some of you will stumble across it suddenly, and you might spend a lot of your life trying to clean it up. But that's the biggest mess you'll ever, is what your parents did to mess you up. No matter how great your parents were, they had their thing.
Oh, geez.
And they passed it. They had their insecurity and they passed it on to you. And so much of what we judge ourselves for, it's not us. Like, I'm not going to get all Freudian here, but I did a assignment for when I taught a class at UC Irvine, and I asked them to do 30 pieces of life advice, my students, and write 100 words for each. And I could not believe how much you could learn about someone by the advice that they give.
Okay.
And like, I knew whose parents sucked, and I knew who was in a crappy relationship, and I knew who had lost someone close to them in a way that was way too painful or too soon by reading their advice. Every woman in the class had at least 3 pieces of advice out of 30 that were dealing with physical safety, and not one man mentioned it. And that's what I mean. Like, you start to get your eyes open. We know we see the world different. But when I remember I asked a woman once for her advice, she was driving me in St. Louis, and I said, what advice would you give your daughter? And she says, live your life like you're walking to your car in a parking garage. And she said, you cannot live your life in fear, but you better live your life aware. And that really hit me, because when I go to my car in a parking garage, I'm thinking about like where I'm going to stop for food, or, where I have to get to. And the women in my life are like, I get mad at myself if I catch myself daydreaming on the way to a car. And that, just realizing how powerfully different that one part of life is, about how much fear there is, and that when we listen, we can better understand it. So my girlfriend told me something that really was probably the biggest, maybe most powerful moment of empathy I've ever felt. Like, because it wasn't me thinking, oh, I'm going to try to feel for them. It was a rocket of understanding through my body. So we got a cabin in New Hampshire, and I went up the night before so that when she arrived, we'd already be moved in so she could work during the day. So I was up alone the night before, out sitting by the fire, and, really enjoying it alone. But I don't know, like, do you like the woods? Do you like it at night?
With fire, yes.
Not even, I guess, the woods, but like, when your cottage or wherever you're staying is in the middle of a clearing, and around it is the trees, and it's almost like a curtain, and you can't really see beyond them.
Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
Yeah, I have never liked that, because I've seen how quickly animals can accelerate out of the darkness. And so there's always that, like, I've never really liked it. Have you ever been going to the door of a place like that outside, and you just get the feeling that something is coming up quick behind you?
Yeah.
And like, there's this rush, and you actually like sort of rush through the door. I got the most powerful feeling of that. Like, I'm about 10 feet from the door, and all of a sudden I just feel run. And I do, and my heart's racing, and I'm sweating, and there's nothing there. But it was just like, my body was just like, it's darkness, something could pounce, run.
Yeah.
And I joked with I texted my girlfriend and said, I'm going to come inside. I kind of got the willies, like something could track me at any moment from the woods. And she just writes back, that's how women feel all the time. She goes, hunted. And it was like, it was a flippant thing, like, it wasn't like, I'm going to think and lay down a real truth on you. It was sometimes when people say things and they kind of toss it away, and it's really powerful for some reason, good or bad. And they believe it strongly because, like, it was just second nature to them. They didn't even think about it. They just tossed it out there. Like, oh yeah, that's how women always feel, hunted. And it was like, that feeling has gotten me my whole life, made me run through the door as if something was chasing me. And to think about what that was like all the time was such a powerful thing. And I think when we realize what other people are scared of, we can forgive ourselves a little bit more for what we're afraid of. And so that's why I'm trying to understand a little better people I agree with or disagree with, like what are they afraid of? Because what we find is that the things that we're fighting over aren't things that we're afraid of. It's that what we're afraid of has been created carefully by people who are better than I am, and I'm pretty good at manipulating emotions. It's my job. I put together a presentation where I specifically want to like move people's emotions in exactly the ways I want. And I realize there are people paid millions of dollars to do that on a broad scale. And they tell us what to be mad at. And then we do it. But what we're mad at and focus on has nothing to do with what we're scared of. And what's happened is as long as you keep people scared and unaware that they are, you get fear and anger and not happiness. And that is what I think I escaped all those months ago. I'm doing a speech in December called Our Professional Speakers Sociopaths, because a hard realization for me was I was spending all this time and I was explaining to someone how people were going to feel at exact moments in my speech and why I put it together. I was just trying to explain like my version of the art of speaking, and you have to run people through an emotional particular route. And yeah, everyone knows how the story's supposed to go, but once you know it well enough, you can be like Tarantino and you can change the story and move it and twist it around. And it's fun and it's exciting, but it's all designed to do one thing: make you emotional in the way I want, because when you are emotional, the brain remembers things. If it hits you emotionally, it remembers it. And so I realized I had become incredibly good at manipulating people. When I realized that's what I did professionally, I came across a really awful potential realization that I was doing it all the time off stage, that I was just naturally good at it. And then I had honed the skill because I got paid for it, that I didn't turn it off. And it was awful to realize how many years had I been where I wasn't interacting honestly. I couldn't turn off the manipulate people. And instead of reacting to them, listening to them, I would start to shift their emotions around. And I didn't do it maliciously, and I didn't do it even like consciously. But I'll tell you, if we're talking about like things that make me incredibly happy, it used to be when I identified stuff like that in myself, that like I'd get really angry and be like, you're a terrible person. And now when I see it, I go, oh, I can change that. And then I'm not that guy anymore. You can be so much happier when you realize that I no longer think of that person as me. I think of that as somebody that I used to know. And I don't dislike them, but I am proud of of certain things that I now don't do or do that they didn't. And I think that being able to look at yourself honestly and say, I don't suck, I engage in problematic behaviors, and then really ask yourself what you think they are by thinking about when people get angry at me, when people get frustrated, when people don't seem to want to be around me, what am I doing? Okay, I won't stop talking. Or, I'm like flirting without realizing that's what I'm doing. The reason I asked you about what your favorite compliment would be, so many of the reasons that turned me happier is because I got one compliment that I didn't realize I wanted really badly. Because I never would have come up with it given 1,000 years. But I was being vicious to myself in front of my girlfriend, and she was, folding clothes where you're sort of talking, and I'm watching Netflix off in the corner, and I was beating myself up for something. And she's like, don't stop beating yourself up. And I'm like, you know what? I just want to be awesome for you. And like in one of those flippant things where she didn't overthink it, so I knew she wasn't trying to be like sappy or sweet, she goes, don't worry about it. I already know that I don't know another man, or I've never met another man who works so hard at being a better man. And it was the nicest compliment, and I didn't know I wanted that. And ever since then, once I realized that was the nicest thing and the proudest I had ever felt, that became my mission. Is to be the most dedicated I have ever been to being a better man.
Can I screw with your brain for a minute?
Please, by all means. Just so you know, it could cut you. It's kind of broken.
So you were talking about problematic behavior. And first of all, we are all ignorant 100% of the time. We can't possibly know everything that there is to know. And so we're always going to be ignorant, which I think is a thing that a lot of people are afraid of. A lot of people are afraid to be ignorant, but it's not optional.
We are all ignorant all the time.
Yeah.
It's like I say that the most important 3 words in leadership are I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you don't use them, you will demonstrate them.
And then the next thing is you were saying that you had a lot of behavior that was problematic. And then all of the words that you used to describe your behavior were so negative, like that you would manipulate people's emotions. And like we look at the word manipulate and obviously we think that it has like a negative tone to it. But in my years of experience, like looking at your work and talking to you, I don't think you have, other than maybe the times when you complain about babies on airplanes, I don't think I have found your behavior to be manipulative in a negative way. I think you are consistently attempting to have people look at things in a different way that will sort of break them out of whatever negative cycle they're stuck in their head. So I don't really... Yeah, I don't really know that you could call it bad behavior.
Well, no, I didn't mean it was bad behavior. I mean, does manipulation mean negative? Because I'll be very clear. When I say I am emotionally manipulative, I have chosen to use that not to negative or try not to. But then I look back and I'm like, wow, you did sometimes when you wanted to hurt people. But like when I talk about being emotionally manipulative, I mean with the intention of making people less afraid, with the intention of making people feel stronger, with the intention of making people feel more forgiving of themselves. But I'll tell you, my buddy Neil Pasricha, like it's a result of behaviors. But he's got a book called The Happiness Equation. And I don't know if you've read it. Ridiculously, have you read Neil Pasricha's The Happiness Equation? It's all the research behind happiness. And basically it comes down to this: be happy first. Just be happy first.
Where do you want people to find you?
DrewDudley.com. DrewDudley.com is the place to find me. And although I don't do a lot on social media, I think someone who works for me does. And I am at Day One Drew, and that's all words. DayonedRew.
That's it for this episode of Ridiculously Happy Ppl Cast. If you want more open and unfiltered conversations like this one, subscribe in your podcast app, rate the show, and leave a little review. I'm Sophia Lemon. I photograph oddballs, underdogs, and rebels in Bruce Grey, Simcoe, and Muskoka. I help my clients create visual triggers that literally make them more ridiculously happy people. You can book a photo session at sophialemon.com and find me on social media at Ridiculously Happy Ppl, and that's spelled PPL. Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.